hope you've all had a good clap for the NHS and emergency workers as we show our appreciation for all the wonderful people in our society who are looking after us during these really weird times. Great to see you. Great to join Table Talk tonight. We're so glad that you can be part of what we're doing, and we're really looking forward to spending some time with you. So please let us know if you're online. Let us know as you join. Give us a thumbs up. We want to hear from you. We want to see you. We want to know you're out there. We want to know you're doing well. If you can do that, that would be really helpful. We are looking forward to our guests tonight, but I'm not going to tell you who they are, even though they've been out on social media already. I hope you've had a great day. The sun hasn't shone in Bolton today. In fact, as I look out into my garden, it's absolutely pouring down, and it's been weather-wise a really miserable day. Can I just say a couple of things in preamble? I hope Faye Case is listening, because she inboxed me with criticism, really, of my leadership, saying I've worn the same T-shirt on the last 3 times I've been on Table Talk. So I'll put a clean T-shirt on for you, Faye Case, tonight, and I hope you're well. I'm having trouble to find out if somebody could come and help me from upstairs, my faithful son. That would be great to see who's logging on, but we're just looking. We're trying to refresh and see what happens. That would be great. Well, we hope you've had a great day, whatever you've been doing, whether you're furloughed, whether you are in work, whether you have any level of restriction. We want to give you a warm welcome tonight. My name is Derek Smith. If you're just kind of scrolling through and you come across me, my name is Derek Smith. I'm the senior pastor of King's Church, and I'm looking forward. My son is here. Thank you, Oliver. If you can get me on where I can see the live feeds, that would be brilliant. Well, Boris Johnson was on the news earlier and said, in his opinion, we have reached the peak of the epidemic, and hopefully from here every week we'll get a little bit better and a little bit nearer to whatever coming out of this ultimately looks like. We do want to pray all the time for people that are going through it, people that are losing loved ones and in hospital. So, our prayers, be assured of all our prayers. We are online. Rachel Eden, Ben Islip is watching, Claire from Blackpool, Carolyn Jones has come on. Great to see you all. Give me a thumbs up. Dave Lowe is on from our Wigan campus. Jones on from our Bolton campus. Hazel Jones, God bless you, Hazel. Hope you are all free to ball. So keep coming on, keep liking, keep sharing. We're already over 100 people. Listen, I have missed you so much, Kings, and I just can't wait till we can get back together. And I'm going to be that first Sunday back. You need to be there, because I'll be like a man on fire. I'll be exploding as we get together and just share. I'm looking forward to whenever it is. I'm looking forward to spending time with you. Andy Bynum's joined us. Meg Ellison from up in the northeast. Susie's joined us. Hi, Suze. Joanne Bladen Kay in school. Well done, Joe. Hope you're having a good time. Come on, keep joining us, Kings. I want a few more people before we get on to Lydia. Hi, Lids. Oh, my wife's joined us. Oh, great. She's upstairs watching from her room. Andrea. Connor's on. Keep the faith, Connor. Keep going. Adam's joining us. Pastor Adam's on, so we all better behave. He's watching. Anne Dwyer. Hi, Anne. From Erskine Close. Leanne Law. The other one's on. Great. Naomi Bainbridge is on, and I have to say, I had to give Naomi a big shout out, because one of the things I was doing today is I was doing some filming for Giants TV, and I was flossing in the back garden. And if you want to see a middle-aged man totally embarrass himself, get on Giants TV on Sunday morning, and Pastor Derek is doing the floss in the middle of the garden while it's raining. It is really a sight to behold. Well, we've got plenty of people joining us. Chris has joined us from Blackpool. Hi, Chris. Suzanne Monks. All good to see people join. Louise Whittington has joined us. Can we just say, Louise, and I don't know if Mark's there as well. Mark did a live story today. Mark, that was a brilliant live story from our Bolton campus. Very vulnerable, very honest, and really, really love that. Phil Daniels is watching from Blackpool. Oh, Faye's, I've just seen her, she's on. Yeah, Faye, no, clean T-shirt. lot of criticism I've had. I know how Piers Morgan feels now, a lot of criticism. Wonderful. Well, I think it's at that time where we are going to introduce who we're going to have on tonight. The last couple of weeks we've had Pastor Mike Ritchie on, and then last week we had Pastor Glyn Barrett. They have both been friends of mine for probably 25 years plus. And they're people that are outside of our church. They've been a great encouragement. They're what I call our outside heroes, and we really appreciate people from all around the nations and all around the world who partner with us. But people that are even more important, I wouldn't say even as important, but even more important to me than even the fabulous relationships I've got all over the UK and all over the world, is the heroes that are in Kings. The heroes that make Kings happen, the heroes that have been there right from day one. And tonight it's great to sing. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as we invite Ian and Jo Scholes to the studio. Ian and Jo, are you with us?
Hello, we are with you.
All the way from Burnley. Have you got internet in Burnley?
Yeah, just got gas, and then we got internet last week.
Oh, brilliant. We have internet in Burnley, so internet is creeping further and further north, and that's absolutely brilliant. Well, it's great to see you. And although you weren't live, you were probably listening to me as I was talking about last couple of weeks. We've had people on that have been really significant from outside the church. Well, you two have been at Kings from day one. You live kind of 30 odd miles away. You've never made that an excuse, and you've been part of Kings from that first Sunday. We'll come to that first Sunday in a few minutes. I think what would be great is to talk about how on earth you from Burnley, because I didn't know you really much before, how on earth you started to come to Kings for that first Sunday, and how did we meet? Tell us a bit about your memories of that, Ian.
Yeah, so when was it? When did we get married? 2015. 2015 we got married. So Jo and I got married in March 2015, and in the summer of the year.
You didn't get married in 2015?
No, not 2015. Sorry, I'm terrible with dates. 2005 we got married.
Right.
So just our 15-year wedding anniversary. That's what I was thinking about. So we got married in 2005 in March, and in the summer of that year, one of my companies at the time was helping out with an event called Audacious. So it had just moved. It was Meltdown, and then it moved from university campuses, big Christian event run by Glyn, actually, that was on last week, which is great, and Derek and the team. So we were involved in that, just trying to help support it, and we did it at a place called Ice Sheffield, which was quite interesting because it was in a city rather than on a very safe university campus. It was all a bit bonkers around the city, but it was fantastic. So we were helping with that, and to be fair, with those sorts of events, you just have a mad busy week. You're up early, you're to bed late, and there was very little time for talking about anything to anybody. Just the team was on it, and we were just at it all the time, and it was a fantastic event. But I think as part of that, kind of Derek was speaking on the stage, and as he was coming off the stage, I had to take his microphone off him because I was at the side of the stage, and various other things that we were sorting technical stuff out. And we had the privilege of being around such a great group of people. Glyn and Stuart, who's now at the AOG and at Audacious, and Derek and all the other pastors and leaders and people that were there. And my kind of church background was very, very different. We came from a little village church where I grew up from kind of the word go. And one, to be honest, God was really speaking to me about all sorts of things at the time, as he often does. And I just was walking through this little coffee shop, which was kind of overlooking the ice rink where the event was. And I just saw Derek probably just having a quiet 5 minutes. So he was just sat on the sofa. So basically just said, do you want a brew? I think we got a cup of coffee, and we just started having a bit of a chat. And I think the words came out of my mouth, is there anything I can help you with? And as Derek does, he just kind of went, yeah. I'm thinking about this and that and the other, and you were just kind of in the transition and wondering about what Kings looked like and where it was going to start. And I kind of said, for me and Jo, even though Jo wasn't anywhere near us and I'd not had the conversation, yeah, we'll come and help you do that. So that was kind of the starting point of me having a coffee with you, Derek, and I suppose the rest is history. That was probably 14 and a half years ago.
Wow. I think me Diet Coke, or do you mean come and follow me? And you went, I'll do whatever you want. So I said, well, I'm starting a church called Kings. I want you to be part of it. Joe, can I ask you a question? Because he said yes to me. He had no consultant. Does he always make life-changing decisions without asking you?
It's the story of my life. Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm always playing catch up. It's kind of like he's already said the yes, and I'm like, okay, I've got to get my head around that now.
Yeah. So when Ian came home from my Sheffield and had a conversation with you, Joe, what did he say? Because, I guess you had no plans to leave the church you were in. What did he say?
So we were really settled in the church that we were in. We were the youth leaders at the time, although the youth wasn't that big, but we were the youth leaders at the time. So it was the sort of church that I could just see myself growing old in. So to be honest, I was really content, and I'm thinking I can be home for 12 o'clock on a Sunday, bacon butties. It's just amazing. And then all of a sudden he turns around and says, oh, we're going to try something new. And I thought marriage was new. So I thought that was like, the exciting times. I thought, we've not even been married 3 months and already we're changing things around. So, yeah, he came home and he spoke about yourself. And to be honest, Derek, to me, you were just a name. I had no relationship with you at all. I'd never met you. I hadn't really met any of the other guys apart from coming over maybe to a couple of the events that you did at Meltdown. But I don't know. God just spoke to me and he just said, it's something you should do. You shouldn't be settling. So I kind of agreed initially. I like to put boundaries around things, and I agreed initially to a 6-month period because I thought it's all right. It's like a cooling off period that I have no idea who they are, and if I don't get along, then actually in 6 months' time I can say I'm going to them. And like I say, we're here 15 years later.
It's good.
That's absolutely. I remember you came to our house on a Saturday night. That was the first time we met you, and shared your story. So okay, let's just go back to that first Sunday at that little cafe above the library in Tongfold. In Castle Hill. Ian was there playing his guitar. I think your Dave was on the bass. You were there. When you look back on that time, tell me a couple of things that you've learned in the 14 and a half years of your journey of being part of Kings.
Shall I start? Okay. So for me, I've really learned how much relationships are important to me. So coming from a church where I knew absolutely everybody and everybody knew me, they knew family, coming into the King's environment, although it only be small at the start, maybe 15, 20 of us to start off with, I kind of felt like an outsider, and I felt like I really had to make an effort to kind of socialise with people and to speak to people, and that's not what comes naturally to me. Ian's the loud one usually. Once I know people and I'm friends with people, you see a different side to me. So a lot of my close friends would think, yeah, she's really confident. But actually, I think at that point, I wasn't so much so. And like you say, Ian was up every week, up at the front playing the guitar. So I had nobody to hide behind. So I found myself a little job. I was the words lady. So I thought, I'm cool here. I can sit behind a computer and I can put the words on screen. But yeah, I think for me, out of that, just relationships, people come in and making the effort, and myself making the effort with them, and that's just carried on throughout the whole of Kings. And I think God's really taught me to kind of our resources are, I know we say it, but our resources are in our relationships, and it's not just at church, it's in work. And for me, I've learned that that's throughout every different aspect of my life. So yeah, I think for me it's all about the relationships really.
So I think the kind of build up to that meeting with you on the sofa at Sheffield, probably for 2 years before that, God had been really speaking to me about what was in me. And to be honest, for quite a while, I didn't believe him because I were a bit thick at school. I kind of got through on good manners and common sense, but there wasn't much else kind of happening really. So I did all right in life, and I had a fantastic upbringing, but God was really speaking to me about some massive stuff that I was kind of having a conversation about. All right, God, if you're saying it, I'll believe you because you're God and I trust you. And I've been a Christian since I was 7 years old, so I was kind of at 24, so I've been around a bit and watched a few things, and I was in the church, or grown up in the church that my granddad ran, and then my dad ran, and then I was part of the leadership team as well as being kind of the youth team. And so a lot of people were looking at me who know me since I was nothing, going, right, Ian's the next man in line. And I was looking at it going, this place ain't big enough for me. I'm going to kill them all. So there was just this moment of God really just saved my life because he knew how much I loved church. And how much I just love building church. So he needed to give me something, and he's given me several things over the years, business and various things, where he just can get out of me what's in me, which fascinates me as much as it fascinates everybody else, and it's just brilliant. And that's what I love doing with my life. And I think that's the big thing I've learnt with Kings is that the world is our oyster. We can, some of the things we're doing now, if you'd have told us that when we were 15 people, I remember running round trying to plug a mini disc player in to record Your First Message. That's how bad it was at the time when mini discs were actually popular. And we're running around, and there was 15 of us in a room, and even the things that we were talking about and you were saying on that day, it was just, brilliant. It was just the arena that God wanted us in to be able to do some big things. And that was a real vision for me, because that's what God was speaking to me about. But I had a brand new wife. We just moved house. Everything was going on, and I just thought, actually, if we need to set our marriage up as though we mean to go on, which is if God asks us on a Monday, by Tuesday as a family, we're going to be doing it, and we're going to set our lives up to do those sorts of things. So it was interesting times, but it was a real God thing in that he just created some brilliant stages for us to get out what's in us, even though we didn't quite know what that was at the time.
Wow, brilliant. I think on any journey, when God asks you to do anything, he needs to bring people around you that are as mad as you. And I think, when we were very small, we had no money, no buildings, nothing. I remember we had a midweek meeting one December, and we met at the Friends Meeting House in Bolton. Yeah. And it was an icy night, so a few people couldn't come and stayed away. And there was about 20 people there. And so I was quite disappointed. I wanted more there. And I got up to preach, and I talked about planting churches, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And you're on the front row going, amen, amen, amen. And I'm thinking, God needs to put people around you that are daft enough to believe what you believe, that God could do something incredible with a ragtag and bobtail group of people. And, I'm totally grateful to, people like yourselves, people like Adam and Susie and others who were there at the beginning and have just followed Derek Smith, who some people think's a bit of a lunatic, who's a big mouth, who just makes bold claims and then goes and has a go and tries to do it. I'll tell you what, I was going to ask you, both of you, a bit about your Christian background. But what I really liked I was flicking through Facebook about a week ago, and I saw your mum and dad at Cliverger, it's called Cliverger, and they were doing a Sunday morning live, and obviously there was nobody in the building except your mum and your dad, and your dad was like leading worship like he was leading the Billy Graham choir, and your mum was on the piano like Liberace. I mean, there was nothing else in the room, but they were just going for it. And they're not youngsters. They could be sat at home having a chill time, retired and right. And I'm thinking, well, when you see that level of passion for God's house in your mum and dad, you kind of know where you kind of they didn't fall far from the tree, did it, with you? So just tell us a little bit about you growing up, a bit about your background, and then Jo, will you tell us a bit about yours as well?
Yeah, so I don't think there's a better kind of Christian upbringing that anybody in the world could have than I had. So I'm kind of probably 100 years in our family into being a Christian. So my grandma, who's still alive, and my auntie Gwen, who were twins, are 97, I think. So they're currently still with us, which is good in the midst of all of this. And then my granddad, which was on my mum's side, and my granddad and grandma on my dad's side, were Christians. And my granddad on my mum's side helped my granddad on my dad's side come to the Lord. So there's just this really there's just this massive heritage. So I've always been in a family of faith-filled Christian people that have just been, they've loved church, they've loved others, they've loved God. I've had millions and millions and millions of hours worth of prayers over mine and my brothers and our kids' lives, and you don't see that stuff, but it just, you see the benefit of it and the fruit of it, and you're listening to stories. So my granddad Fred, who was my mum's dad, was just bonkers. So him and his best mate Percy, they're brilliant names, aren't they? I just grew up hearing stories of how they used to take churches over and witches wanted it, but they got it, and there were voodoo dolls in the church door because the witches didn't want them to. And I'm growing up just loving this sort of stuff, and I'm probably only 5 or 6 or even younger than that when they were telling me these stories, but I've just lived in it. And I've got a mum and dad who just lived out what it was to be a Christian. So it wasn't talk. It was the people we had at Christmas dinners and the people that we had living in our loft and the people my dad used to help up way home and pick up off the street. And he preached it on a Sunday. He lived it on a Monday to Friday at work as a teacher, and he did it every moment of his life. And we got to see all of it. We got to see from when he woke up to when he went to sleep, and that's who he was. My mum my dad was very much a Christian he did the action side of Christianity. So you very much saw what it was to really work out what your faith was. Where my mum was probably a little bit more from a spiritual, discerning, prophetic sort of side of things, although she was so shy or lacked so much confidence, she probably wouldn't tell many people that. But so I got a really interesting balance, and we grew up in an independent Methodist church with some people that were just good old school Christians. So I remember the guy that preached when I became a Christian at 7 years old, a guy called David Bulcock. I used to, and you wouldn't do, they probably wouldn't be allowed to do it these days, but when I was getting baptised, I walked from my house to David Bulcock's house, and he used to do an hour's baptism class every Wednesday night with me and just taught me through the Bible. And we did it for like 6 months before I got baptised, not because I needed to do it before I got baptised. He enjoyed it, I enjoyed it, and there's this 70-year-old, 60-year-old bloke teaching this 13-year-old kid. And it was just brilliant, and all of that got put in me. And because of the heritage of me granddads, I used to go and preach at places, and everybody would know everybody that come before me. So you had a bit of a head start before it was. So I think my faith is based on a very, very simple fact that I love God and I love people. Those are the number one command, as Jesus said it. I don't get more complicated than that. I'm not a big thinker. I've got a very childlike faith. I trust God. I love him to bits. And I think I've got that from just watching my family and all the blessings upon my family. And how actually, if you do that and you love people and you show God's love to people all the time, that actually God really looks after you, is your provider. And I scare my mum and dad to death with most of the stuff that I do in work and business, and so I am a different. God's made me.
We're going to come to your work in a minute because nobody knows what you do. And I've got some questions here for you. People have texted in. So
there's just a level that I suppose that's the foundation, and God's just, because of that foundation, God's just put some stuff into me that keeps me going every day of my life, and I just know he's good for it, really.
Good. Jo, question to you.
So I think my story is a lot different, really, to be honest. I've always known my mum to be a Christian. She's the first Christian within her family. She used to go to the Sally Army as a 16-year-old girl, and that's where she came to know God. But she was probably ridiculed a little bit in her family for it. And it didn't stop her. She carried on. She went away from church and then got married to my dad. And then when she had both of myself and my brother's older, he's 4 years older than me. When she had both the children, she decided that she wanted to bring them up going to church. So we attended a Methodist church in the village where I lived, just with my mum on a Sunday morning. So Sundays for us as a family, my dad would go out in the morning fishing very early. wouldn't come back till late at night, and myself, my brother and my mum would go to church, and that continued for many years. We moved from a Methodist church to the Mission, Central Gospel Mission at Nelson, where we formed really good friendships and relationships, like I was saying before, with other families. And what I really liked was that there were a lot of families that it wasn't mum and dad together, because for me that felt a little bit strange, just going to church with just my mum and not having my dad there. And so it was nice that we got to do lots of things, and that included things like going on holiday. So although my dad didn't go to church, he was very open about us going. He encouraged my mum to take me and my brother to church. So we'd go to things like Easter people, spring harvest. So I was exposed to a lot of really good leadership as I was growing up. And I think for me, I made a commitment when I was 7 at a mission, a field mission in Barnoldswick. And it was one of the Lawrence brothers. You might know one of the Lawrence brothers. And yeah, so I made my true commitment there. But obviously, as time went on, I went to church, but I went just for the social side, to see my friends. It was just something that we did. My mum always said, you have to go to church until you're 16, then you can make your own decision from there. I carried on going because my friends were at church, but without really digging any deeper. It was very much a surface faith. I knew God existed. I knew that he loved me. I knew that I was forgiven, but that was about as deep as it went. I remember being asked to get baptised because it was the done thing at like when you were 15, 16 years old. And I remember having a real battle with it, and it was absolutely nothing to do with God. It was the fact that they wanted me to wear white clothing and get wet. I was just like, that's not happening. I think that's wrong on every level. So I had a real internal battle about that. And to be honest, I did things to please people. I was a people pleaser, and I got baptised, and I don't regret it at all. Best day of my life, but I just wish I'd probably had a little bit more of your teaching behind it before I actually went through with it myself. So then carried on going to church, decided I wanted to become a teacher. So obviously I needed to go away to university for that. So my mum prayed hard about it, that it'd be somewhere remote. I prayed hard that it'd be somewhere in a city centre with loads of nightlife. And my mum got her way, and I ended up at a place out in the Lake District called Ambleside. I actually applied thinking, I actually applied thinking I was going to Lancaster. The postcodes are exactly the same. Well, very nearly the same. So I thought I was going to Lancaster with all these clubs. And when we drove up for my interview with my parents, I ended up in this quiet, quaint village called Ambleside. And that's where I ended up going to university. I won't lie, I had an absolute blast at university.
Yes, we're not going to go into that quite yet tonight, Jo, but let's leave the university years for the description would be forgiven.
Yes, I am well and truly forgiven. So I went away to university. I had a great time, and then whilst I was away at university, I don't know if you want us to go into this bit, but my mum started wooing Ian, not for herself, but for me. Yeah. So my mum was inviting Ian round.
So the question is, why?
I know. I think she knew who I was with at the time and thought, crikey, can't do any worse. So whilst I was away in the middle of the Lake District, I found out that my mum had been inviting Ian round for tea and looking after him, and then...
It was a little strange.
Yeah. So, and then he likes to say he brought me back to the Lord, but no. I came to a point when I realised that I had to get wise. I had to...
wise up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did.
I remember I did a 3-month itinerary in 1986, I think it was, in the Lake District, and I got invited to do a talk at Charlotte Mason Training College on why children need God. And I was working in Ulverston at the time and drove down and did it to all first year teachers who were in teacher training. And I did a 40-minute talk, and then we got into some very, very lively Q&A that lasted about an hour and a half till I got run out of town. So, yeah, I've been to Charlotte Mason as well, but I didn't go as a teacher. Listen, you both got great stories, and God's, involved in both of them. But we all know it's not about the start, it's about what you do with it. I became a Christian at 19. I had no Christian background at all, really. I went to church for weddings and funerals, and that was about it. So I suppose it's like anything, isn't it? It's then what you do, it's the legs you put on that. So, you, Ian, you come to King's, you're just married, you're starting on this new adventure. Now, the running joke over the last 15 years at King's, and you're one of the leaders of King's, is this. And everybody asks me, everywhere I go in the country, Andy Doherty's just asked me tonight, please ask Ian. Now, I'm only going to give you 2 minutes, right? So I don't want the all around the houses answer. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to answer this question. What does Ian Scholes do for a living? Because I think Jo wants to know as well.
Yeah.
So, 2 minutes starting from now.
So it is around the houses sort of answer, but I've got several businesses which I run. A lot of them are social enterprise, which fundamentally help people get back into work. So we have a engagement to employment kind of model that helps people from crisis into full-time employment. But the truth of it is, I kind of committed to God when I left work. So I was an aerospace engineer by trade. There was a very great, profound moment, which is a long story, where as audibly as I've ever heard God, he said, leave that and just follow me. And that was the fundamental bit. So I did. And I didn't know what to do because I was doing quite well as an engineer. And this was just before we got married. So it was a good old time. My kind of 24th, 25th year was all good fun. So I left a pretty decent job going around the world doing all my engineering stuff just because I really trusted God. I spent 40 days and 40 nights because that was the closest thing I knew Bible people did to find out what to do with life when nobody knows and God says follow you. So I just did that, and the two things I got was you'll be a pipeline to millions to the kingdom of God, which I was quite happy with. And the other thing I promised God at that time was, if you ask me to do something on Monday, by Tuesday I'll be doing it. So I just spent my life from 24 years old just making sure all my decisions were on that basis. So I let things go quite quickly. I pick things up quite quickly. If it fails, I'll forget about it. If it's successful, I'll try and use it for growing God's kingdom. But the truth is, I've never really had a job, because as soon as I say someone's going to pay me for my time, it means I can't do what I promised God. So I don't know how I've done it for the last, since I was 24, so I'm 39 now. But I've just trusted God to be my provision. He always blesses me. We have a fantastic life. We've got a fantastic family. God's given me some of the desires of my heart, which are all incredible stories about people, things, church, all of those great things. And to be honest, I really do just trust God at his word. So I go after some stuff that would scare most people to death, and God generally turns up. And if he doesn't, I know it wasn't right in the first place. So it's very difficult to say what I do for a living, because the truth is I just follow God. Yeah. And it sounds a bit cheesy, that, but that's what I did. I promised him at 24, and that's what I've been trying to do ever since. And I've just tried not to block my diary up with silly nonsense like work, and actually having to get up in the morning and do something for somebody else. So I left work when I was 24. I left my only proper job at 24. I started at 16, and ever since I've just been trusting God and setting up a few businesses and helping a few people and trying to do as little as possible for as much money as I can. Brilliant. So it is a long-winded answer, because I don't really do it.
I gave you more than 2 minutes because it's such a good answer. But Jo, just asking you, along the way, there has been 3 additions to the Scholes tribe. And they've been born in Kings, and they've growing up in Kings. Just tell us about your kids.
So I've got, for those of you that don't know, we've got 3 children, Isla, Elias and Eden, all brought up the same, all very, very different characters. Love them all equally. I was just thinking today, I love the fact that I think because they've grown up in this environment, they're very much, they're well adapted. So even in this circumstance that we're going through at the moment, to them, we've not seen any fear, we've not seen any anxiety. It's just another part of the journey. And I think because of what they've been through with us, like Isla, bless her, she's moved 6 times in her life. She's only 12 years old and she's moved into 6 different locations, houses, caravans, 1-bedroom houses when you've got 3 children. So they're just coming along on the journey with us. And I love that. And I love the fact that that's their normal. That's not like, oh, wow, this is, it's just their normal and they just get on with it. So yeah, they're beautiful. I love them.
Yeah,
you've got 3 great kids. They walk around Kings like they own it, and they are such a blessing. And like you said, they're very, very, very different. And I love the fact that when your kids are grow up in God's house, that's the norm, isn't it? They don't understand. Like your friends not going to church, it's so normal. Okay, moving on a couple of questions for you both. I want you. And probably Ian needs to start this because you might need a bit more time, Jo. I'll give me your 2 stat over the 14 and a half years that we've been going from that first Sunday. And in October this year, we pray and we'll be in our building because we're going to have our 15-year celebration. Give me 2 each standout moments from your King's journey in King's Church.
Yeah, so... There's thousands, isn't there? I think that the main ones are, and they kind of building related for me. A physical building does a lot in my world because I often get very spiritual things out of building things naturally, because that's how God's always. I was born to be a builder. That's one of the callings on my life, where it's aeroplanes or church. I'm always building something somewhere. So I think there's been a few moments, and I think when we moved into our Unit 1, that was a real moment. I remember having a look round that unit with you, Derek, and kind of looking, and we were weighing up, should we have half of it or should we have all of it? And you just think to yourself, what a stupid conversation that was. Now, it wasn't a stupid conversation then because everything was much bigger and it just seemed massive at the time. But I think that was a real catalyst for where Kings was going, in that it was we just had to make these big steps and say to God, it is the size of the container, you fill it, and he does. And I think that was a real significant moment, the first Sunday in that. And I remember making phone calls to schools all around Burnley to try and rob everything that they had, because at the time, and it was brilliant timing, we had like 12 schools shutting down and having all amalgamated into 5 super schools in Burnley. And we basically just took a ram round all these 12 schools and robbed them of lighting rigs and chairs. And it was hilarious, a mishmash of everything. I remember having my head down a toilet with Tony Blade and Kay pulling out cubicles, trying to get some cubicles for our toilets and doing all of that. So I think that was one of the standout moments. And I think... right up until recently, even now, I think this is a really interesting time, because one of the things I love and I always do for my family, because I think me and Jo are slightly different, and I've had to get the balance right over the years, is Jo will naturally settle us and I will naturally unsettle us. And I think over 15 years, it's taken us to get into a bit of a rhythm of where the happy medium is between those two things. But I think that's part of the nature of church, and this is what I love, which is overarching, is, Derek, you're often an unsettler, but the natural default of any organisation, and the bigger it gets, is that it automatically wants to settle itself. So people get in routine, people sit in the same chairs, people want to go into all these things. And I just think we're probably coming out of this moment and this time of being locked down and all of that, where I think people are going to be better at being unsettled. And I think this is a real significant moment right now. There's been many over the 14 years, but right now, in terms of, we actually built an incredible building. We were well on with that. We were just getting into it. But actually, I think God's doing something amongst our people that just allows us to be a bit more unsettled moving forward. And I think we're all learning that we can actually cope with this better than we thought we might be able to, but because it's been forced upon us. So I think right now God is doing something absolutely incredible, and I'm just looking forward to the other side of this and what it's done in people's lives to kind of put that unsettledness in them, because I think God constantly wants to unsettle us because he wants to get more and more out of us. So that's probably my two moments off the top of my head, although there's thousands.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm the same. And it's so hard to pick from them all. I think for me, one of mine goes back to being in Unit 1 and one of those last weeks that we were in. Gradually, as we were moving out and moving into the mill, there was less and less equipment in the building, and the conversations I had around those weeks, the people I spoke to, we all kind of felt this sense of we're not packing up church, we're packing up our home. And like you would do when you've moved home, and I've had plenty of experience of that, it's a really good time to kind of pack in all the things that you know that you need to take with you. Not physical things necessarily, but all the things that you know that God's going to use in the new place that you've got. And then also a really good time to kind of sift through the things that actually you've accumulated along the way and actually you don't need. And I remember being in the Giants cupboard looking, and there was just stuff everywhere. And I remember thinking, as I'm practically sieving through things, thinking this is just an amazing opportunity that we've got before us now. And it still gives me goosebumps now, just the way that everybody pulled together as a family and everybody really took ownership of those last few weeks. And I know as a core team we spoke about how we really need to keep momentum going, and we keep kind of like not dangling the carrot, but we weren't sure ourselves what week we were going to be moving in. And it's really hard, isn't it, when you're trying to articulate that to people, but still keep spirits up and keep enthusiasm there. And for me, being part of Giants team, I was so proud of the team, how they all stood up and they stepped up to it and really took ownership of it. And it was like packing down our home and moving on to the next phase that we had. And then obviously that just exploded then when we got into the new building, into the mill. And I think probably my second moment, although there's lots and lots, I'm thinking of Loved Overton, I'm thinking of all sorts of things we've done over the years, but my second probably biggest moment when I got goosebumps was the very first week in the building when I'm going to get emotional talking about it.
Even I got emotional that day.
Stood at the front, knowing how much time and effort, blood and sweat had gone in to creating this space. And I looked at Ian on stage who was playing, and I looked across at Phil Denny. Phil Denny's in bits crying, which I thought, that's just Phil Denny because he cries a lot anyway. And then I looked up at Ian and I saw that he had this tear in his eye, and I thought, oh, crikey. Not that I ever doubted God could do it, not for 1 second, but that was just the moment for me that I thought, yeah, God's given us something. It's not the final product. He's just given us something that we're going to build on over the years, and that just excites me. Yeah. The possibilities, the endless possibilities that we've got with that place. So yeah, that's mine.
I think one of the things about lockdown is for the last 6 months we've been consumed with the building and trying to get it ready for toilets flushing and things so people can move in it, and it's been so building focused for me, and I think because now we've not got that building, it's allowed me the last few weeks to reflect. And the strength of Kings is not our flashy building and our massive screen and and all the trappings that we're building in it. The strength of Kings is the wonderful, brilliant, genius people within it who are ordinary and genius. And part of having you guys on tonight is, sometimes in church what we do is we forget and we think, oh, the great people are in other churches. And we get used to it's just Ian and Joe, it's just Adam and Susie. When, there's people in our church that are, and I can say this because I've travelled, they are world-class people. And I think God can do anything when he finds the right people with the right heart, who are daft enough to say yes and follow something that's bigger than themselves. And, the strength of Kings is beyond our core team, in our campus pastors, in our staff. We have some of the best people. I go to a lot of churches that are bigger than Kings, and look at their staff and think, I would not swap my guys for these guys on any day of the week. So I think we've pulled together such a great team, and you and Joe have been so intrinsically part of the heart of that. And, lived in Burnley, 3 children, very busy jobs, a teacher, a businessman doing whatever we don't know, still not sure what he does. But, you have never moaned. I've seen you in your good times and sometimes you're not so good times. But the fact is, you've never moaned, you've never grumbled, you've loved God's house and you've loved God's people. And, I want to pay. If I had a hat on, I'd take it off to you. And I want to say really well done. But that's up to today. So let's talk, because we're getting ready to land in the last 5 minutes. I just want to talk about the future. Okay? Just tell me something that's in you for the future. I mean, we'll coronavirus will run its course. So we'll take we're on the other side of that. What's in your heart for the future of you guys and Kings and what we do into 2021 and beyond? Just spend a couple of minutes each of you.
Can do.
So I think I have a bit of a think at the start of every year, and I think this year kind of word for me was evangelism, and I grew up in a world where there was a lot of evangelism on streets and crazy bandstand things and marches for Jesus and all of that sort of thing, which I'm not sure would go down particularly well in the world that we live in, although there is definitely a place for it. And I think that's been the thing. And I really sense that the last kind of 15 years of Kings has been us doing a really good version of what we know. And that's not to say that we've not done some incredible things, because we have. But I just believe God's heart for his church is to build uniqueness. And I just think that's the time that we're moving in now. The building is way beyond financially and where we were up to and 1,000,001 things. But for God, it's like a drop in the ocean. So I think if we can say, God, listen, if we can take on your drops in the ocean, which seem to be big to us, because we want to get into the uniqueness that he's got for us as a group of his people in Bolton. And I just think there's some incredible things that we do where it's just like the cream's rising and our uniqueness is starting to shine through, of all these talented people that we've got, all the genius. The Bible says one body, many parts, and all these many parts are starting to come together. So I really think the future is about us learning what our uniqueness is as a church and what we do for our community, what we do for the individuals who are in our congregation, but what we actually do for the world. I think there's something significant that we can do for the world that will absolutely transform thousands and thousands and even millions of lives all over the world, which I'm believing for. So evangelism, and I think the future for church is really about now walking into the stuff that we don't know, that we don't have a clue about, that God knows, but we trust him implicitly that he's going to show us. And I think the building's a big part of that, because people who don't know God see buildings. They don't necessarily see Jesus straight away or get touched by the Holy Spirit. They see a church changing a mill around and wonder what's going on, and that's where it often starts. So I think that's where I'm really praying into at the moment, just for God to grow me so I can get into that uniqueness and help church too, and help people to get into that, and just spot it a mile off when it's a spiritual thing and not a physical thing, so we can run into it really.
Brilliant. Joe, what about you?
So for me, I know I've shared Core Team Away before, but God gave me this vision before we moved into the mill. And it was one session that you were doing, Derek, and you were talking about dreaming. And I remember drawing in my journal, and it was like this beehive, this like honeycomb it was, with interlocking pieces, and church was at the centre of it. And then there were different pods all the way around, and it was things like community, like youth, children, all these different separate pods. And I think for me, for this next year, being on Giants has really helped me to see how teams should work. And the team has come together so well over these last few weeks. last few months even, and that excites me. So for me, I feel like God's just positioned me to learn so much about how teams should grow, how they work together, how they develop their relationships. And then ultimately, I don't know when, but I want to see things within Kings expanding, and I want to see people take real ownership over different sections that are really on their heart to do. So for me, for example, I'm passionate about children, and this lockdown, when we started it, obviously I'm not teaching every single day because the children aren't in. So when I'm not teaching, I've been given some CPD to do, continuous professional development. And when I looked at what I had to do the equivalent to a degree in safeguarding. And I was just like, crikey, that's not something I would have ever had time to do in the past. But God's created this time and this opportunity for me to upskill myself. So I'm just hoping people use this time to grab whatever it is that they're passionate about and whatever it is that they feel God wants them to take ownership over. And I'm just excited to see in the future how all of these things become linked together and just create this whole thing that is church, not just church on a Sunday morning. So for me, that's where I see myself. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time tonight. I know. In fact, what we're going to do now, I want everybody that loves Ian and Jo to press love hearts on your. Let's see how many get love hearts. So if you think Ian and Jo are absolutely brilliant, right now, press those. You have got a lot of love hearts out there.
We can start pressing.
And, a lot of people think we love Jo. We're like that with Ian.
Understandable.
That's it.
So listen, thank you so much. Just, I'm going to get you guys to pray just as we close in a minute. But just before we do, let me tell you about a few things that are coming up, Kings. Next Thursday on Table Talk, we have Danny and Naomi Murphy from the Life Church in Coventry. They're going to be with us. They were part of Kings for the first 5 years and lead a great church now, and they're going to be coming telling their story. So get in after the NHS clap next week. Also tomorrow for our prayer and fast day, we're praying over employment and business and the economy. People losing their jobs, people are unsure about where the businesses are at. Well, we're going to pray really that God intervenes and really helps people and brings strength and comfort. So that's what we're going to be praying for. Also, log on Sunday. Pastor Georgina will be speaking on Sunday. I read her message today. And listen, I'm going to nick it when she's preached it and preach it somewhere else and take all the credit. It's literally that good. So log in over the weekend on Sunday. That will be absolutely brilliant. Final thing before I get Ian and Jo, whoever they wants to pray, is this. I was on YouTube today, and Facebook, and I was just flicking through, and this pastor came on, who shall remain nameless, but from the UK, and did about 5 minutes. It was the most depressing 5 minutes I've ever watched in my life. It was basically, after coronavirus, nobody's going to want to come to church, our buildings will be closed, we'll be financially in problems, and blah, blah, blah. And after 5 minutes, I switched it off because it was offending me. And you know what? I want you all to buy into this, Kings. That isn't us. That might be some people saying, but it isn't what God's saying, and it isn't us. We're going to come out of this strong. We're going to come out of this blessed. We're going to come out of this ready to bring healing and wholeness to a world that's going to be asking a lot of questions. And we as a core team and a team, we are praying for you. We're believing for you. We're not just praying for you. We want to stand with you practically. When you get blessed, we rejoice. For those that, are struggling with health issues, and I know some people in our campuses have known people that have died of COVID-19. Listen, we're with you in your grief. We're with you in your brokenness. But we believe that when this is over, church isn't going to be empty. It's going to be packed. We believe all things work together for the good of those that love God, that stay called according to his purpose. That's our mantra, not negativity. So listen, keep your head in a great place. Keep your head in your Bible. Keep your confession a good confession, whatever is good, whatever is pure, whatever is holy. Speak it out over yourself and your family. Things don't happen by accident. We've got to produce something, and I believe this, and I'm prophesying this. the next 15, I mean, we're coming to the end of the first 15 years of Kings, and in October we'll celebrate and we'll sing and shout and scream for the first 15 years. But I want to tell you, the next 15 years are going to look like nothing you've ever experienced before, because the world's getting darker and the church is going to get brighter, and we're going to do things differently, but we're going to shine brightly, and we're going to hold on to the truth of God's word, and we're going to walk into our society, and we're going to see transformational change in our world. So thank you for watching Table Talk. We love you so much. All the things we've talked about in the future, be part of. Who's going to close in prayer for us, Ian or Joe?
I think it's me. I've been nominated.
Ian, pray, and God bless everybody. We'll switch off as soon as Ian's finished praying. But thank you for watching Table Talk, and thank you to Ian and Joe and their beautiful family. God bless you.
Bless you. God, we just thank you so much that your church is still plan A, that you have put it in place to transform this world and this community and our communities. And God, I just thank you for every single person that's listening to this, and wherever this season finds them, whatever place they find themselves in, I just thank you that you are their God, that you are above all of this, that you can bring peace that passes all understanding to hearts and minds, and you can bring joy and you can bring goodness, whatever the circumstances. But God, we just thank you that you are still on the throne. We thank you that you are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And Lord, I just pray for our church. I pray for every good thing that you've got for it. I pray in this time of restriction that you will unlock so much creativity and so much vision and so much just spirit of new things coming out. And God, I just thank you for every single person that's watching this and that's in our church, that you're bubbling things up. Lord, I just pray that they will not dismiss those things, that they will just let them run wild because you've put them in the heart. So God, we thank you for the privilege of being able to build your church, the privilege that you allow us to get involved in your work on earth as it is in heaven. So God, we are so grateful as a couple and as a family to be part of everything you're doing. And we're so grateful to be working alongside great leaders and great people every single day to build your kingdom in Bolton and in Wigan and in our Persian congregation and in Salford and Blackpool and the Northeast in Gateshead and everywhere else that we're going to get to. We just thank you so much that you've got a plan for us, you've got a purpose for us, and we trust you with that, and we want to go bigger, we want to go faster, we want to go stronger, and we want to give you everything we've got for you just to fulfill everything that's unique within us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. God bless you, Kings, and we'll see you on Sunday.
See you later, everyone.